experience on the road. Some drivers are chess monsters. Additionally, neither After the Credits nor Damage 365 Radio can legally guarantee any insurance premiums will go down. After the Credits, however, can be heard on the iHeartRadio app available through Google Play and iTunes.
This is Lanny Poffo, formerly the genius full of glory and renown. You are listening to Damage 365 Radio.
Esposito's Pizza and Pasta. Check us out at one of our fine locations, 930 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey, or 233 East Main Street in Manasquan, New Jersey. From pizza and salads to pasta and buffalo wings, we have something to suit every member of your family. Whether you're seeking to take out, delivery, or just want to dine in, let us do the dishes. We would be more than happy to take care of your next meal. Our courteous and friendly restaurant staff is here to meet and exceed all your expectations. We promise an enjoyable experience each and every time we serve you. Try our award-winning sesame seed crust pizza, the recent winner of first place in the Las Vegas Pizza Open in the Artisans Division. Visit us online at sesameseedpizza.com for store hours, menus, and phone numbers, or just stop by one of our two great locations. You'll be glad you did. Esposito's Pizza and Pasta, so close to eating at Mom's, but without all the yelling.
This is former WWE superstar Damian Sandow, now known as Aaron Stevens, and you're listening to Damage 365 Radio. Keep it tuned. You're welcome.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
And welcome back, everybody. And right now, we would like to welcome in former WCW superstar and one of the original members of the nWo, Scott Norton. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks a lot, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And very excited to have you on the show today. And you know, we've had a couple former nWo members, including Eric Bischoff, on the show, and it's always good to get different aspects of the business and, you know, those times in WCW from, you know, different people. It's kind of funny how sometimes the different people see it different ways.
Sure. I mean, you know, Eric, he was one that started all, and I'll tell you, it was just awesome to be around all the guys and be involved in that. It was an awesome time in wrestling. It was probably the best time in wrestling for me, no doubt. And let's go.
All right, so we're going to start kind of at the beginning. So we're going to rewind a little and go back to the days before you started wrestling. And how did it all start? I mean, I know you were a power lifter, and how did you wind up becoming a wrestler?
Well, you know, it's kind of crazy because, you know, I went to high school. Me and when we were Hawk were best friends in high school. Me and Rick Rude were really good friends starting out middle school. And, you know, I mean, Kurt Hannon, you know, Wayne Bloom, the Beverly Brothers, Johnny Nord, Barry Darsow, all of us ended up being pretty significantly good wrestlers. But I didn't go right away. I just didn't. It wasn't something I wanted to do. I mean, I was an arm wrestler first, and I was really pushing to be the best. I mean, that was something that really, really meant a lot to me. And I was an arm wrestler right out of high school for 10 years. And finally, I won the biggest tournament ever, the over-the-top tournament with the movie. And I was supposed to be in the movie, but wasn't much of an actor. And so what happened is, Stallone was really cool. He was a great guy, and he was there for the tournament, and it was pretty neat. So he had me travel with the movie, and I would be at the premieres and everything, and I was approached by a New Japan representative, and they told me, they said, we would really like you to come on board. And so back then, we didn't have cell phones and everything.
Yeah.
So I got back from Japan. I contacted Hawk, and I said, Mike, New Japan Pro Wrestling, they're pretty interesting. I said, that's a pretty good company. And Hawk says, Norton, if you don't take it, I'll kick this. You know what I did. He was begging me forever to get this business, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do. And, Kurt and Rick were just super good friends of mine. Wayne Bloom was a really good friend of mine. Nord, everybody was in it, and they're all doing well. But I just didn't want to do it. And so finally, I said, it's time to make a move here. And, New Japan gave me Brad Reagan's contact number, and next thing you know, here I am. AWA started out right in local territory there, and that was kind of the end of the AWA era. And I did a couple other things and ended out in Portland for about 8-9 months, and finally got the ropes, and New Japan made the call and brought me in, and 30 years later,
All right.
It's just crazy, but it was awesome.
And you obviously you represented the company. You were a champion with them. And
yeah.
And then how did who gave you the phone call to say WCW is calling, we want you?
Well, you see, when I in the AWA is when not when I first met Eric Bischoff. I met Eric Bischoff previously, probably in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started AWA, there's Eric. He was working for the Gagnes, and not a very high position at all. I mean, it was Eric was started from the very bottom, and just Eric and I formed a relationship then, and then when I started in New Japan, and then I was when you go to Japan, they always want you to branch off and take a year or two and go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
So WWE gave me a holler.
Okay.
And I interviewed with Vince and J.J. Dillon and everything, and couldn't come to an agreement because they weren't guaranteed any money, because I didn't have to leave. I could always stay in Japan.
Right.
And when Eric found out about that, he calls me up and says, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean, what the hell am I doing?" I'm trying to better my career, move, they kind of asked me to move around. He says, I'm the vice president of WCW. I said, what? I had no idea. He took over. So he brought me in, and next thing you know, I'm in the NWO and going back, working for two companies at the same time. It was pretty wild.
Now let's get into the NWO. I mean, like I said, we get a lot of different versions of stories from different former superstars, and as a whole, I mean, I think everybody thought the idea was great. Hall, Nash coming in, Hogan being that third guy, turning on Randy Savage, and basically something that'll be sunken into the memories of everybody for the rest of their lives that were wrestling fans. And then they formed the Black and White, and it was just some will say it got out of control. Way too many guys were in the NWO. A lot of them had WWE, former WWE stars or affiliations. And how do you feel about it? Did you feel like it got out of control with just adding way too many? What was your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, you can always look back now and criticize what happened then. That locker room was a tough locker room. It was a tough, Eric that was a real difficult time for him in the business also, because these guys, I was the kind of guy that came into business and I was doing my deal in Japan. In Japan, they tell you what's going to happen, that's it. You roll with it, you work your ass off, and you do what you can to get as far, as good as you can, and that rolls with what you deserve. You got to work your tail off just to get into the, the main events and whatnot. And, WCW, nWo, it was like pulling teeth on them. It was a difficult time. So I sat back and watched and looked at that and just said, I know I got Japan. Japan's my baby. With me going back and forth to 2 different companies, and every time they got me rolling with something here in the States, then I got to go do my responsibility in Japan with nWo. So It's kind of like split. So it mattered to me, but it didn't matter as much because I always knew that I had New Japan. That's where, regardless of what happened in the States, I was going back to New Japan.
Okay.
So, it bothered me the way things were ran there, but I was okay. So it didn't, I wasn't going to fight, and I wasn't going to, I'm not trying to bury anybody, but I was, a lot of guys put a lot of heat on Eric, and it shouldn't have happened.
Right. Well, you had some tremendous egos in that locker room.
Oh, yeah.
I
think
Eric deserves credit.
But you don't think there's some tremendous egos in WWE right now? Or?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But times have changed, though. Times have changed a little bit. Back then, to have that many egos in the locker room, that was kind of unheard of. WWE had their, they had their 3 guys, their go-to tag team, and that was it.
I agree. I remember, I'm not going to say a name, but we're doing tapings in Orlando for the Saturday show, and everybody's there, and usually the top guys would be there the first 2 days, and everybody got to shoot off. And I remember a guy sitting there telling Terry Taylor that, and he was just a mid-card guy, turned out to be a superstar. But and he's just telling Terry that he didn't think that these people that he had lined up for his matches were any good, and they certainly shouldn't be in the ring with him. And I'm just going, looking at the guy and going, what the hell am I? It trickled down. So what I'm saying is, it wasn't just the top guys. That went all the way down. As far as you could get down in that company, people saw what was happening. Yeah. They would complain, and they'd get their way with it. And if you don't stop it, and you don't, I could have. I'll tell you a story. Okay. Rick Rude asked me, he says, Scott, he says, I've been golfing in this charity golf tournament for years, and I really want you to come with me. This is when he started WCW, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I said, all you gotta do is talk to Eric and get off, and I'll be fine. I'm going back and forth in Japan. I'm working as much as I can here in the States. I'm doing my share. I deserve it. I'm sure he'll give me a little time off. So it's a Monday night show. It's probably about an hour and a half before showtime. I said, Eric, you got a minute? And he turns around, he looks at me, he throws his hands up in the air, and he just grabs his hair, and he goes, you two? God, does any of you guys, are you ever satisfied with anything? How much more do you want? I'm going, Eric. I says, I want to know if I can get off next week to go golfing with Rude in a charity golf tournament. He says, go, he said. Yeah, man. I says, and also I'm walking down the hall, and I'm going, man, I should have hit him up for a bump. But he was just beside himself half the time, everybody was after him and just.
Well, nobody was satisfied. And you guys were on top for a while, and still people weren't satisfied.
Oh, never. They're never going to be satisfied if you don't And it wasn't him not. He didn't have complete control of the